electromagnetic induction. Magnetic flux represented by letter phi. So magnetic flux through any surface area. Let us say this is represented by A area and vector on top. So it is a vector quantity held in a magnetic field that is to be represented by B vector is measured by the total number of magnetic field lines crossing magnetic field lines or magnetic field lines of force crossing the surface normally. That is the condition, normally. So therefore it is equal to, it is given by mathematically the cross product or the dot product of vector B and vector A. So we can write down expression for phi will be equal to vector B dot vector A. We can write down BA cos theta. Now what is theta here? Theta is the smaller angle between vector B and vector A. Okay. So if we have, let us understand this. Suppose we have surface area so a plane area which is given by vector A and it is placed in a uniform magnetic field. So this is a uniform magnetic field of vector B such that the normal to this plane the normal drawn, that is unit vectors on outward normal n cap, is making an angle theta with the B. So normal to this plane, that is vector A, is making angle theta, small angle theta with the direction of magnetic field. So therefore then we can write down, as we said, is given by the dot product. So phi is equal to B dot A, because we need a component of B which is normal to this plane. So the component of B normal to the plane will be, because this angle is theta, will be equal to B cos theta. So we can write down BA cos theta. So if this is the magnetic field B making some angle theta with the normal to this plane, then the component of B which is normal to this plane will be B cos theta. So therefore it is given by the dot product of vector B and vector A, where theta is the smaller angle between the normal to this plane and the component of B which is normal to this plane. So therefore it is given by the dot product of vector B and vector A. So therefore it is given by the dot product of vector B and vector A, where theta is the smaller angle between the normal to this plane and the component of B which is normal to this plane. So therefore it is given by the dot product of vector B and vector A, where theta is the smaller angle between the area uh, A vector and B vector. Okay, now if instead of this plain uh, area that we're talking about, if we have a curved surface, in case of a curved surface, how to find out flux? So flux will be given by, what we do is we divide that curved surface into curved surface, and another condition is in non-uniform magnetic field. So here we have a uniform magnetic field. Now we're talking about non-uniform, means the strength of the magnetic field at each part of the surface is different. Okay. In that case, the total flux is given by the magnetic field B1 and dA1. So B1 is the magnetic field linked with a very small area element of this curved surface, which is given by dA1 vector. So this is the area, small area, and this is the magnetic field linked to that area. And the dot product of these two will give you phi1, that is a flux linked with that small area, plus B2 dot dA2, that is now the field B2 is linked with another area element of that curved surface, dA2, and so on. So you can go on like this to divide the curved surface into smaller areas, dA1, dA2, dA3, and get the dot product with the help of their magnetic field linked with those areas, because magnetic field with area element dA1 will be different, with area dA2 will be different. So we get the dot product to find out the flux associated with these individual magnetic area elements of this curved surface. We can get a summation of all these, and we can write down Bi dot dAi. So this is the ith value of the magnetic field, and this is the ith element of this curved surface element of this curved surface. Now, if this curved surface is divided into very, very small area elements, then this summation can be replaced by integration. So this will become B dot dA. Okay. So this will become a summation. Summation will become an integration, that is B dot dA, and this is all. That is all the area elements have been, all the flux associated with different area elements have been added to give us summation of all Bi dot dA. And if these values are very small, then the number of these elements will be very large. So we integrate B dot dA. So once again, so this is the surface area given by A vector. This is the outward drawn normal, which is the orientation of this surface area. And the orientation of this surface is such that the magnetic field is tangential to the surface, so that the angle between the outward normal and the magnetic field is 90 degrees. So theta is 90 degrees, cos theta will be 0. Therefore, flux associated with this area in this field, in this orientation, will be equal to 0. Okay. Now, when the magnetic field is normal to the surface, so this is when tangential, this is the magnetic field is tangential to the surface, when the magnetic field now is normal to the surface. So when it is normal to the surface, then if you see the figure, let us draw the figure here. This is the surface and the normal given by n cap, and this is the field, magnetic field, in which it is placed, given by vector B. Now, what is the angle between n cap and direction of magnetic field? Theta is equal to 0 degree. So that means cos theta is equal to 1. So that means flux will be BA cos theta, which is equal to BA. So this is the maximum we can get of any dot product. So this is the maximum value. So flux associated with this surface when the angle between A vector and B vector is 0 is maximum, because the direction of B is such that it is acting normal to the surface. Units of magnetic flux. The SI unit of magnetic flux is Weber. WB, we written as WEB. So Weber is the SI unit of magnetic flux. And what is 1 Weber? So 1 Weber is the amount of magnetic flux over an area of 1 square meter held normal to a uniform magnetic field of 1 Tesla. Okay, if the magnetic field normal to a surface of area 1 square meter is 1 Tesla, then we say that flux is equal to 1 Weber. So 1 Weber is equal to 1 Tesla multiplied by 1 meter. So what is 1 Weber? 1 Weber is equal to Tesla meter square. 1 Tesla meter square. Or from here 1 Tesla will be equal to 1 Weber per meter square. So you can get all these combination conversion. Now the CGS unit, this is the SI unit, that is Weber. The CGS unit of magnetic flux is Maxwell. CGS unit of magnetic flux is Maxwell. Okay. And it is generally denoted by using some capital and X, like this, Maxwell. Now what is 1 Weber and Maxwell relation? 1 Weber is equal to 10 to the power 8 Maxwell. So that is how we can convert SI unit to CGS unit. Now you can find out the dimensional formula. So that is for you to find out. That is an exercise, and the dimensional formula I will just let you know is M L square L2 T minus 2 A minus 1. Okay, and this you derive yourself. Now A is what? A for ampere. Okay, so we are using A for ampere. Now from this, if you see the dimensional formula, this is what? ML2 T minus 2, and this is per unit area. So ML2 T minus 2 is the unit of, it is energy, and which is joule. We can write down Weber is equal to, so unit of energy is joule, and per unit area, so per ampere. And in the denominator, we write down ampere. So joule per ampere. So joule per ampere. So 1 Weber is also, if you can, is given by joule per ampere. And further, What is joule per ampere? Joule. And what is ampere in terms of charge? It's coulomb per unit time. That is coulomb per second. 1 ampere is equal to 1 coulomb per second. So we can write down joule per coulomb, and the second here. So what is joule? Joule per coulomb? It is volt. Potential, because this is work done divided by work per unit charge. So volt second. Okay, so 1 Weber. Weber is, if you convert, it is volt second. So you should know all these values in the exam. Sometimes instead of Weber, he may write joule per ampere or volt second and so on. Experiment of Michael Faraday and Henry. So first experiment, that is, suppose what is there's a coil of many turns, which is a closely wound coil, may be made of copper, insulated copper turns, one after the other, very tightly wound, and two ends are connected to a very sensitive galvanometer. So this is your galvanometer. Then they took a magnet. This is a magnet, and it has two poles, suppose this is north and this is south. And we know that there are magnetic field lines around the magnet. On the outside, the magnetic field lines are from north to south. And inside, they are from south to north. So like this. Okay. So they took coils of many turns and a magnet. Now when they brought the magnet close to the, well, this is the north pole, and they bring the magnet close to the coil. So what happens? They experimentally see that as they are bringing the magnet close to the coil, there is a deflection in the galvanometer. And when the magnet stops, the reflection in the galvanometer becomes zero. So initially galvanometer is showing zero like this, and when they are bringing the magnet, it may show something like this. That is, there is a deflection in the galvanometer. That means there is a current flowing through the galvanometer. So that means the current has developed while in the circuit, in this closed circuit, when the magnet was being brought close to the coil. And when the magnet stopped, the current again became zero. Galvanometer said that there is no current in the circuit. And then when they took the magnet away, first they bring it close and then they take it away. So when they take it away, then again, while the magnet is going away from the coil, there is a deflection in the galvanometer indicating the current in the circuit. But now we see that the deflection in the opposite direction, but there is deflection. So when you bring close to it, there is a current in some direction. When you take it away, while you're taking it away from the coil, then the current in the opposite direction. And when you stop the magnet at some point, there is no current. Even if you bring the magnet into the coil and stop it, there is no current. So what is the observation from here? While the magnet is moving, there is a current. And when the magnet is not moving, there is no current. And when the direction of the current decides, or if the direction of the movement of the magnet changes, the direction of current also changes. Now, what is the reason for this? The reason is the change in magnetic field linked with this coil. So when the magnet is being brought close to it, because when the magnet was far away, when the magnet is far away, the magnetic field linked with this coil due to this magnet is weaker than when it is brought close to it. तो जब मैग्नेट को हम नजदीक लाते हैं तो इस कॉइल के साथ जो इस मैग्नेट का मैग्नेटिक फील्ड लिंक हो रहा है तो वो स्ट्रांग होता है. जब हम दूर लेके जाते हैं तो वो चेंज होके वीक होना शुरू हो जाता है. और इसी तरह जब हम इस तरह मैग्नेटिक फील्ड जो है जो इस कॉइल के साथ है वो लिंक हो रहा है, वो चेंज हो रहा है. ठीक है, तो जब मैग्नेटिक फील्ड चेंज हो रहा है तभी हम करंट देखते हैं. वो चेंज कब होता है? जब मैग्नेट मूवमेंट में होता है, मूव कर रहा होता है. तो एज लॉन्ग एज देयर इज अ चेंज मूवमेंट इन द मैग्नेटिक मैग्नेट, as long as there is a change happening that in the magnetic field linked with this coil, there is a current in the circuit. The current is induced in this closed circuit. But when the magnet stops at any point, the change the change in magnetic field linked with this coil becomes zero. There is no change. When there is no change, there is no current. So that is what we understand from this experiment. So we can understand that the current is induced in a closed circuit when the magnetic field linked to that closed circuit is changing. But when the magnetic field linked to the closed circuit is not changing, no current is induced in the circuit. So that is what we understand from this experiment. Now, second experiment was again another coil. So I'll just draw a coil in it like this. Again attached to a sensitive galvanometer G like this. So this is another coil. Now this is connected to a battery or cell, so that there is a current flowing in this coil. So when current is flowing in this coil, what happens? We know when current flows, what happens? There is a magnetic field developed in the coil, around the coil. It behaves just like a magnet because magnetic field around a solenoid, tightly wound solenoid, is similar to a magnetic field due to a bar magnet that we already have discussed. So there is a magnetic field around this coil, as if there is a magnetic field around a bar magnet. Now when this whole setup, this circuit, is being brought close to this circuit, the magnetic field linked with this coil changes while it is being brought close to it or taken from it. At that point of time, we see a deflection in the galvanometer. So initially it is zero. When this is switched on and being brought close to it, let us say the direction of the deflection is in the right direction, towards right, and when it's being brought away from it, the direction is in the opposite direction. That means while this current carrying coil, which is now has a magnetic field around it, being brought close to this coil, the magnetic field linked with this coil is changing. So there is a deflection. That means there is a current induced in this coil. And when it is being taken away, again there is a deflection in the opposite direction. That means again magnetic field is changing and we see the current in the circuit. So again we conclude that as long as there is a deflection in the galvanometer, there is as long as there is a change in the magnetic field, there is a deflection in the galvanometer. That means the current is induced. And when you stop this coil at particular distance from this coil, even if the current is flowing, there is a magnetic around it, but because the magnetic field linked with this coil is not changing, the deflection in the galvanometer will be at 0 point.